Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's get another HSR analysis going. Qingque? I'm not sure how the name is pronounced. I'll probably just refer to her as Qing for now, because I don't know how. But first of all, we've got our first Quantum character and another erudition character. Now, for this one, I have to mention what Quantum does. Now, for the previous elements, I haven't had to do that, because the previous elements, wind, lightning, ice, fire, and physical, they're all very simple, very straightforward. Once you do a weakness break, you will apply a dot to an enemy. But Quantum and Imaginary are slightly different, and I do have to outline what these do because it is a different thing. So if we scroll all the way down to the bottom of this page, we'll find out what each one does when a weakness break occurs. Now, as I just said, all the basic elements just apply a dot and do a bit of additional damage. But Quantum does something different, and so does Imaginary. So Quantum applies the entanglement effect. It pushes the enemy back in the turn order and deals Quantum dot damage. So the dot effect is still there for Quantum, but they also push the enemy back in the turn order. And it's good to understand this because it's going to be a very good thing to take advantage of when you're using Quantum characters against Quantum enemies, or against Quantum weak enemies rather, because, well, abusing the pushback in the turn order mechanic could prove to be a massive advantage. So just thought I'd mention that one because I probably will continue to mention it for Quantum and Imaginary because they do have different effects. So that is that, just so we understand it. But also she's an erudition character, so we'll scroll back up and have a look at what erudition is. It is the multi-target DPS. And from my little early look at this character, she's an interesting character, to say the least. She works in an interesting way. So let's start off by looking at her talent, because I believe the talent is the first thing we need to understand because, well, it outlines how her whole kit works. So her talent, at the beginning of an ally's turn, Qing will randomly draw one jade tile. The tile may belong to the cracks, the dots, or bamboo. Now, I'm not sure if this is actually all the suits, like the tiles, because it's kind of like a deck of cards. It's an easy way to look at it. Like, she'll draw from a deck of cards, and there's suits in the deck of cards, and she'll have a chance to draw any of these suits. Now, it says here that there is the cracks, dots, and bamboo. But in an ultimate, it mentions the fish suit, so I'm not sure if that's just a completely different one, but I'll leave that for another time. She'll draw a tile belonging to one of these suits. Up to 4 tiles may be held at one time. If Qing holds 4 tiles of the same suit at the beginning of her turn, she will use up all the tiles and enter the concealed Kong state, improving her attack by a certain percentage and enhancing her basic attack. The concealed Kong state, will terminate after an enhanced basic attack has been performed. We've outlined that. That's how her tile system works. She draws them at the start of any ally's turn, and she can have up to 4, and if they're of the same style, of the same suit, they'll be consumed to give her an attack bonus as well as an enhanced basic attack. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, we can start off with a basic attack. Now, I'm not sure why the Priden.gg doesn't have, like, the actual values for her actual basic attack. They just have the values for her enhanced basic attack, which I'm not sure how to differentiate these ones, but we'll just go with it for now. So, deal quantum damage equal to a certain percentage of Qing's attack to a single enemy, and deal quantum damage equal to a certain percentage of Qing's attack to any adjacent enemy. So she has a little splash damage on her basic attack as well. So that's fine. That's great. It's a bit of AoE damage no matter what, but it is enhanced. I'm not sure what her actual just not enhanced basic attack would be. So I do apologize. I can't give you the rundown of that one, but just for the most part, you'll have a bit of splash damage here as well. And then her skill. Now, maybe this is where you'll have a bit of fun and a bit of interesting gameplay. Her skill. Immediately draw 2 jade tiles and gain 1 extra turn. Increases the damage of Qing's attack by 14%, lasts for 1 turn. This effect may be stacked up to 4 times. This is where the interesting part comes in. Essentially, how I can see this gameplay loop going is you'll be using this ability 4 times in a row consistently, or that's how you're going to be doing your opener, essentially. And you're going to be rolling these jade tiles. I'm not exactly sure if that's going to be the term that I'm going to use, but you're going to essentially be rolling the slot machine on which jade tiles you pull. And then if you pull 4 in a row, not 4 in a row, 4 of the same tiles, you can then go into your opener, which then would be consist of doing your Out with the Dead, or if it works, and if you have the right things available, you can use her Burst, which deals quantum damage of her at a certain percentage of her attack to all enemies and changes all current jade tiles to the fish suit. So I'll just go and run through the kind of gameplay loop that you may expect from the character just right now, because this is a lot to take in, to be quite frank, because there's a lot of it's a very drastically different playstyle to the previous characters that we've covered. And so how this will most likely end up playing is this, is that if you start with this character and you have the skill points available, you will cast her skill until you have 4 jade tiles. If you can cast her burst, you will cast her burst. It'll deal a bunch of damage and get you all the jade tiles to be fish suit. After that, you will then consume them to enter the concealed Kong state, which will then buff up your basic attack as well as give you a massive attack bonus, which will then use your basic attack or enhanced basic attack to deal damage. That's how I envision it going. You can obviously use your skill to stack up more of attack percentage, because you obviously have 4 stacks of this, so that might be a good thing to do. Get 4 stacks of this if you can. But that's kind of how I can envision it going. Obviously, through pure RNG, you may get lucky and draw 4 of the same jade tiles, 4 of the same suit, just naturally, and that by all means can happen and will happen to players. But it won't be your easiest guarantee of damage. Your easiest guarantee of damage will be after using your burst. You then transform 4 jade tiles, because you need to have 4. It doesn't add jade tiles, by the way. It changes jade tiles. That's one thing we have to understand as well, is that it doesn't add, it changes. So you need to have 4 jade tiles before using her burst, and then use her burst to transform them into the fish suit to then have them consumed. So that's now out of the way. It's a lot to take in. But it's not too crazy. She's kind of a pre-buffing character before her attack phase. She's a self-buffing, pre-attack phase kind of character. You want to use a skill to kind of set up your attack phase. You want to use your skill to set it up. So that's something we have to understand. But now, let's move on with the rest of her kit and see how it adds to it. So after using her technique, she'll just draw 2 jade tiles. It's not that great. I'll be honest, it's not that great. You're never gonna want to like really do that. It's it's good for her, but like in the grand scheme of things, not that great. So don't use that. Moving on to her first trace, Qing recovers 1 skill point after she uses her skill for the first time in battle. So that essentially kind of makes her gameplay flow a bit fluid. So you'll use a skill, and then essentially you can use a skill again for free, because you'll just get that skill point back. So you get a free use of her skill point, of her skill, for free in battle. Really good. Trace 2, after using a skill, increase the damage of her next attack by 10%, just a buff. And then number 3, her speed is increased by 10% for 1 turn after using her enhanced basic attack from the concealed Kong state, which is fine, and the speed boost is great. These are all great things. They buff you in certain ways. The best one is obviously Trace 1, because of free skill usage, and that gives you damage bonus, which is, well, what you want, right? It's what you want. So far, so good. The character's a bit finicky, a bit more finicky than the other characters. I think it's mainly because this character is one of the newer characters added to the game. I believe this character was only added in the most recent beta, whilst a lot of the other characters have been there since launch, or since, the first beta. So that's why she's a bit more complicated, just to outline that really quickly. An interesting gameplay style. We'll have to look further into the Eidolons to really see if she's super high value. So looking at Eidolon 1, her ultimate deals 10% more damage. It's quite standard, nothing interesting. Eidolon 2, very good though. Every time you draw a tile, or rather draw tile is triggered, Qing restores 1 energy. Now this is really good, by the way. This is really good, because you may be able to get into the motions of using your ultimate very, very consistently after spamming your skill 4 times. That's a really, really important thing to note about this. Because every time you draw a tile, you generate 1 energy. Well, you draw 2 jade tiles per skill usage, and also at the beginning of every ally's turn. And if you use a technique. So there's a lot of avenues of drawing jade tiles, and from her, let's say you use this 4 times, her skill 4 times in a row, you'll gain, what is that, 8 energy? That's a bit of energy, so that's pretty good. So you may be able to get into this motion of always casting her burst after you draw 8 jade tiles from her skill, which is really good. So, very nice Eidolon 2. Eidolon 3's ultimate +2, as well as basic attack +1, standard. Eidolon 4, after using her skill, there is a 30% fixed chance Qing will use an additional basic attack after her next basic attack. Bit of an interesting one. Bit of an interesting one. It's not changeable by effect hit rate because it says fixed chance, but after the skill. So after you use her skill, and then you use an attack, basic attack, you have a 30% chance to essentially mirror it and do it again. So it's fine. Nothing crazy, but it's fine. A bit more damage. Next one, Eidolon 5, skill +2 as well as basic attack +1. Generic, that's fine. And then the next one is the part that will make her very powerful. Eidolon 6, during the enemy's turn, there's a 65% chance for Qing to draw one random jade tile. Now the reason this is good is because it's during the enemy's turn, and if we take into consideration the Eidolon 2, which you generate energy every time you draw a tile, if you're consistently drawing tiles from the enemy's turn, you're going to be getting a lot of energy back. And obviously this energy regen can maybe potentially be altered by energy regeneration rate. I can't guarantee that because it's a raw income of 1 energy, but who knows. But Eidolon 6 is really strong for the overall gameplay of the character. Now, there's one thing that can be the downfall of this character is that the specific percentages of her abilities aren't that high. Now, you'll have to look back and forth between erudition characters, back and forth to figure that out. But right now, the character sounds like they have a specific gameplay style in mind, and it's a very unique gameplay style from just my knowledge of games in general. This kind of draw cards, make sure they're matching up so that you can use a certain ability at a certain time. It's a very interesting one, and I'm all for it. I like it. Very, very cool. And that's the character, by the way, at Eidolon 6. I really do think the character sounds great. Definitely going to be a difficulty curve when people are trying to learn this character because there's a lot of finicky stuff. Make sure you have all the right things, and then use your abilities in a certain order. You can't just chuck them out willy-nilly. You do have to be using them in a very specific order. But I think once you grasp this character, they can be a very interesting character, a very fun character, but at the same time, a very RNG dependent character because you're drawing tiles, and it's a luck of the draw situation. Albeit, you've got a 1 in 3 chance of success, which is not extremely low, but it's also not extremely high, but there is a way to guarantee it through her burst, or her ultimate, which is also very interesting. So that's that. That's his character baseline, but we also have to look at light cones to figure this out even further. Switch over to the erudition. Looking at her signature one is today is another peaceful day. Now this one, after entering battle, increases the wearer's damage based on their max energy. Damage increases by a certain percentage per point of energy up to 160 energy. It's kind of interesting. So increase the damage based on their max energy. I'm pretty sure it's a static number because it's not my current max energy or my current energy, it's just your highest potential amount of energy. So you're going to be wanting to slap this one on characters that have just high energy cost abilities, or high energy cost ultimates, which unfortunately I can't find any information about like ultimate cost on Pridewind. It would be very nice to be able to figure that out, for them to put that a bit of information here, and energy cost of their abilities. But there's no energy cost here, at least maybe I'm dumb, I can't figure it out. I'm not sure. But it would be really nice to know that. But I'm assuming, through process of elimination, that Qing has a 160 cost ult. I would hope that's maybe the case. I'm not sure. But yes, it's based on your max energy, not your current energy. So that's that. That one will obviously be her best one. Today's another peaceful day would probably be her best one. Now, the other ones can maybe work. The birth of the self, increased damage of the follow-up attack. Well, Qing's got no follow-up attack, so that's pretty much useless. And if the current HP of the target is below 50 of their max HP, increased damage dealt by follow-up attack. Pretty much useless. You don't have any follow-up attacks, so don't use this one. Make the world clamor. The wearer regenerates certain energy immediately upon entering battle, and the ultimate increases damage by a certain percentage. Or increases ultimate by a certain percentage. It's good. It's good for an instant, kind of moment if you want to use, if your Qing is your first character always attacking, and you want to kind of just guarantee that you're gonna get her ultimate massive damage out instantly. You can do this. I think this will be good for open world ad clearing. If you chuck this one onto Mrs. Qing, but consistently using it in different systems and different game modes, probably not. And then the last one, Seriousness of Breakfast, increase the wearer's damage by a certain percentage, and for every enemy, a defeated enemy, the wearer gains a stack of attack, up to 4 stacks. It's a generic one. Use this one if you have nothing else, but I think the best one for her is going to be obviously her signature one right now. Today is another peaceful day. They're just generally good, but 5-star is always the thing that I would try to recommend. And we've covered erudition characters before, and we've kind of come to the conclusion that Before Dawn is a fucking banging one. It just gives you flat amount of increases. Now, the only caveat here is this. It increases the crit damage of the wearer by a certain percentage. That's fine. You get a flat increase. That'll always be great. But increases the wearer's skill and ultimate damage by a certain percentage. The only problem here is that Qing's skill doesn't do any damage. So you're losing out on a bit of value there by taking this one choice. Now, is it going to be a massive detriment? Absolutely fucking not. You're getting 64%, or rather 32% crit damage, as well as 20% damage to your ultimate, and your ultimate already does a pretty chunky amount of damage as is. So this one is still going to be your best choice. Now, this last part, I'm not mentioning it because it's like follow-up damage, and the character, Qing doesn't have any follow-up. So Before Dawn is still probably going to be your best choice just because of the crit damage and the ultimate damage increase. But Knight of the Milky Way is not a terrible one. For every enemy on the field, increase the wearer's attack by a certain percentage up to 5 times. And then when the enemy is inflicted with weakness break, the wearer's damage increases furthermore. It's not terrible, but it's dependent on enemies being on the field. And so if the more enemies you kill, the less damage you have. So it's kind of like a bad trade. Before Dawn is going to be your best choice if you're trying to make the character as strong as possible. But in the end, just because it's a lot simpler and Before Dawn isn't incredibly amazing for this character as it stands. Today is Another Peaceful Day is the last one I'd recommend. Just as it's just a solid, it's super easy to chuck on, and you have that damage permanently. It's a permanent damage boost. Light cones is the next part we have to cover though. Light cones? Verbal typo, am I right, boys? Verbal typo. Relic sets are the ones that we have to cover next. So there's only really one relic set that you have to kind of do. It's honestly Genius of the Brilliant Stars. It's the Quantum character. Quantum damage plus 10%, and when the wearer attacks an enemy with Quantum weakness, ignore 25% defense. That's incredible, to be quite frank with you. If you don't run this on the character, you are throwing. Ignoring 25% of defense just by equipping armor is fucking incredible, so always run this one. And then Planetary Ornament. It's a bunch of them. Whichever one you really feel like that is a damage boost, go for that one. There's no need for effect hit rate. No, none of that. You could go for the energy regen rate just so you can kind of get into the motions of using your ultimate a lot more smoother. You could obviously go for break effect, but she's a main DPS, so I wouldn't recommend it. Attack boost could work. Crit rate could work. Crit rate could work again. So there's a bunch of ones that you could do. There's obviously the best one, which, I'm going to recommend it. I'm probably just going to recommend the Space Ceiling Station. The character's a damage dealer. Just go for this one. The other two damage increasing ones, the crit rate ones, the only problem with them is that they buff a certain part of the character that the character doesn't have. So, Celestial Differentiator buffs your skill damage, your skill just doesn't do damage, so you're losing a bit of value there. As well as Inert Salsodo, it has follow-up damage increase, your character doesn't have a follow-up, so you're losing a bit of value there as well. You could do it just for the flat crit rate increase, which is fine. That's no harm done there, but you obviously lose a bit of value in these other areas. So that's why I recommend Space Ceiling Station. And that's what I'll recommend as the final thing. The other ones are just kind of like very niche builds in my opinion. So what was the recommendation again? It was Genius of Brilliant Stars comboed with the Space Ceiling Station. It's going to give you probably the highest bang for your buck in terms of raw efficiency and efficacy of the character. And yeah. That was Qingque's long lost sister. That has been this character. An interesting character, to say the least. Interesting. If they're going to be the greatest, I'm not sure. They're very finicky to pull off, and very, they're going to have a learning curve, definitely a steep learning curve to understanding how the character works in practicality, because I can spout as much words as I want here in terms of theory, but practicality is a different story. How you put into practice is 100% different. So, once we get to the game, obviously we'll do something there. But yeah, that has been this character. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Have a great day. And if something I said was wrong about this character, because I'm quite, up and down about this character and how they work, if something was wrong, by all means, educate me in the comments. And have a great day, guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next HSR analysis. Peace out.